Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by Ideate Software. Be sure to check out all of their great Revit applications designed to increase your productivity.
Start BIMThoughts recording and playback mode engaged.
Hello, and welcome to BIMThoughts, a podcast about BIM technology and techniques. This is your host, Bill DePepic, with Carl Storms and Dana DeFilippi. And we have Clifton Harness. Did I pronounce your name right this time?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big game-changing miracle when I do it right the first time, as you may know. Define yourself, Clifton.
If I had to define myself, I'd say I'm just a problem solver. But I'm very passionate about real estate development, architecture, pre-construction, feasibility, all of the stuff that happens at the very beginning of the process in the AEC world. Very passionate about that. And I'm excited to probably dedicate, I don't know, at least the next 10 years to working on what the future of that looks like. And I've only gotten to get about 2.5 years in so far. And we've got some good progress, I think, on that end. Is that a good enough definition of who I am today?
Sure. I am amazed you have a 10-year plan.
barely have a 10-year plan. I'll be happy if I'm still doing this in the next 6 months. So,
well, these days it's hard to see what tomorrow is going to be like, right?
Right. Well, the sun will come out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
You can bet your bottom dollar.
It's hard, I think, to continue to build technology while, like, maybe we're entering a recession. So the way that we reach the broader industry is a lot more quietly.
I think right now is a good time to build technology because we're going to need it with less people, if that indeed happens. So if you're the technology builder and you make things more streamlined and work better for the company or companies, then you're more valuable. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one objective way to look at it, right? But the other way to look at it is what happened in the last recession was a lot of people left the practice and never came back.
Yes, that was quite unfortunate. Hopefully that won't happen again this time. Or hopefully it won't happen at all. Things will just go back to normal. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in this uncertain time? But in certain times, how did BIM help you do what you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you think of BIM in the US, I mean, maybe you just think of Revit in general. I think the promise of BIM is that it's supposed to make everything a lot easier. In practice, at the very beginning of the process of building design, where I like to live, there's not much out there that makes design a whole lot easier within a BIM environment. So, what we've done is try to focus in on, the BIM side of what we do. And that's just like simple stuff like counting parking stalls automatically, tabulating the building the same way every single time. So, the things that affected me with BIM is that you could do these things. And where I got frustrated was that it wasn't really that easy to do those things in a way that an entire organization could consistently do it the same way. I think that maybe answers your question, Bill.
Well, what did you do to change that?
Yeah, so
BIM didn't change that. You changed it.
We just started off with saying, okay, we're always going to make sure that everything that we do in TestFit, which is, a site planning application that we've been working on for 2.5 years, is quote unquote BIM-esque. So tabulating everything all the time. We're not generating a whole database of all of the components inside the building, but we are making sure the highest level building assemblies have sort of a BIM-like nature to them. So stairs are all parametric, units, firewalls, elevators, all that kind of stuff is parametric, but we don't have to generate a whole database in order to get generative design done.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Carl, Dana, do you guys know anything about what we do? Maybe I should talk a little bit about what TestFit does.
Yeah, that'll probably help quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen some of your stuff, and I think it's fantastic, and I would love to hear. I mean, I'm sure that, well, I'm not sure. I'm sure there's a few viewers that maybe would like to hear more about what TestFit does.
I think they're listeners, not viewers.
Listeners.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think they
they
are
they can view the
listeners.
logo, but that's about it. We don't do web.
So let me ask you guys a question: Is Revit in your minds first and foremost a design tool or a documentation tool?
A documentation tool with a side of design.
Yeah. Okay. I think I like that.
I would say it's not necessarily what I would say. It's necessarily what the users that I support, what they would say, right? Because if I had my choice, I would do everything in Revit.
Uh huh.
But I would say that at least with the individuals that I work with, we probably primarily use Rhino for geometry,
Hmm.
a little bit of SketchUp, very little, and then Revit for obviously for documentation.
Yeah, we're just the opposite. More SketchUp, less Rhino. Revit for documentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that interesting though that people are starting to try to use it as a design tool, almost exclusively now? It's not great at that because BIM geometry is heavy. It's very heavy. When like when you're modeling things in Rhino, it's instantaneous, right? It's just geometry. It's lightweight. But all of a sudden when it starts getting into Revit, it gets a lot heavier. So I kind of asked some firms this question, is your design tool Revit or is it something else? And it's almost always something else. So, when I think about TestFit, things that we're trying to do at TestFit are get the same sort of level of detail in the data that we would get out of a Revit file, but make it super lightweight and make the design interaction super simple. And that's what we've accomplished in TestFit. So it's BIM, but it's not Revit BIM. It's insanely fast. So you can generate parking and stuff very quickly done. And it's not like we're sending information to a cloud to get the solutions back. It's procedural algorithms that rest inside the program itself. So there's a bit of a difference there.
Sure.
So of course the elephant in the room that everyone is going to say, well, if we have this great tool that designs, and I'm going to use the word designs our building so quickly, well, what are we as architects and designers going to do? And before you answer, Clifton, because I know what's coming here, I think really that where you play in that space is less of the ability to design the entire project and more of the ability to very quickly get rid of the work that the designer, the architect doesn't want to do to give them the bounds for their design process. How'd I do?
No, not bad, man. There's another thing is like another question that I like to ask people is, okay, what's the difference between a feasibility tool and a design tool? So okay, if you have a feasibility tool, it could be just like an Excel file that has the history of 300 projects that you've done and the metadata about them, and from that information you can discern, okay, maybe if I have 4 acres and it's a multifamily kind of building, I'll be able to get 300 units. So there's feasibility tools that are things that help us understand the nature of land and what you can do with it. And then there's design tools, which is like SketchUp, Rhino. I'm just not going to say Revit's a design tool anymore. I don't think I can do it. Maybe that's where I'm drawing the line. Trace paper is an amazing design tool, right? Used for centuries. So there's a little bit of in my mind, right? There's a difference between feasibility and design. And when you're in feasibility, you're just trying to figure out, okay, does this thing work? And your constraints are zoning, construction cost, deal structure, physical constraints. What can you actually fit on this thing? And then there's private land restrictions, which can pass through a deed. So we're trying to solve all 5 of those things kind of at once within TestFit. And that way we give architects, real estate developers, anybody using our tool, either a yes or no go from the very beginning on those projects.
Yeah, I'm looking at your website now, testfit.io, and it's pretty cool stuff. I mean, you're dragging out the changing the extents of the site, and it changes the size of the building, or I guess you can go up or down, or change the if you're doing a hotel, for example, you could change the mix of rooms, and it would then tell you how many of each you could get in there. I would guess.
Yeah, right. Just the simple sort of feasibility stuff that you would
Mm-hmm.
do at the very beginning of a project.
Right, which takes a long time to do, and is like mind-numbing work of trying to get that done.
Hey, some architects love to count parking spaces. They love to do it the slow way. It's fine.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they can continue to do that, but why would you want to? So what about AI and all that other stuff? How's that integrating into this?
Uh, depends on how do you define AI and machine learning? You know,
Yeah.
is AI an if then statement? You know, is that artificial intelligence in your mind, or is it, you know, some black box that you've trained with thousands of iterations, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in your back office? You know, how do you guys define AI? And then I'd be able to maybe answer in a more coherent way.
Unfortunately, AI is the big buzzword these days, and people want AI in their stuff, and people are asking for that. I guess generative design and iterative design is more the right term to use than AI. I would think generative design and iterative design is where it goes through a bunch of different scenarios, and you can pick which options you are interested in. So if you're doing a hotel, you want to say, I want to have so many of these size rooms, so many of these size rooms. Go ahead and give me some different options for tower design, or tower layout is more of the correct term, I would think, because it's not designing, it's laying out.
What I normally like to say to architects specifically is, you know, test fit's really more about allocating space on a plan
Mm-hmm.
than it would. It's, you know, it's kind of the meaningful allocation of space on a plan, whereas architecture design itself is the meaningful creation of space. So they're a little bit different, and so when we release when I call it co-creation tools, you know, going back to the idea of AI, TestFit's really an
Mm-hmm.
algorithm assist software. AI is, you know, you kind of almost now need a neural net. You need some more intelligence that isn't programmed. And what I mean by that is, like, it's trained, right?
Mm-hmm.
TestFit's not trained. I mean, it's just really intelligently done algorithms that solve these problems in very specific ways. Um, and so there's maybe a difference between fire, you know, a bunch of parameters at a wall and see what sticks, and that's sort of like maybe the refinery way of looking at it, or our way of looking at it, which is, you know, let's be very specific about how we go about doing, you know, units, or placing building mass, or responding to context in these kinds of ways, um, and generating just one solution instead of hundreds of solutions. So we generate this one solution, and then we let the users have, we call them co-creation tools, where users can actually reach into the model and start manipulating it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit different uh, approach to generative design than most people have seen before.
What other tie-ins do you have? And is this just a standalone product that does the stuff, or does it tie into other products? Or tell me more.
Yeah. So we are working on, or we have an API with Mapbox. So we're
Mm-hmm.
pulling data in from them. We've got the ability to pull in any kind of rasterized information right now. And then on the export side, we've got Dynamo packages. So people want to automate creating a BIM model out of test fit data, they can. We also have DXF, SKP, CSV, GLTF. Our save file type is pretty much just a JSON export. So it is standalone. I mean, the reason why TestFit's standalone is that half of our customer base is real estate developers. people that don't really have copies of Revit or AutoCAD. And we, very intentionally at the beginning started off saying, okay, we need to be independent because we can't require them to buy a copy of this software and download it and install it. So that is, one of the reasons why we're independent tool. We also can manage memory in pretty stunning ways. When you get down into the sort of how we interact with computer hardware, we can do some pretty cool stuff.
Well, tell us about that cool stuff.
So TestFit solves are about 33 milliseconds. And if you were to request, like some website to post some information, just with a standard kind of post, might take 22 milliseconds. So it takes us a little bit longer to generate 17,000 lines of geometry on your desktop as it would to request, some text from Google. So that's pretty insane performance. And I think in the long term, I think architects are going to prefer generative design solutions where they can see the result in real time, and not have to pick through 15, 30 different options, sort of the refinery method. So Carl or Dana, do you guys have any kind of experience in the generative design space?
Yeah, we're definitely playing around with some different things. One of the things we've been exploring and I wanted to talk to you about is sight lines and paths of travel from nurses' stations. See if you've had any requests from that, because that of course takes into consideration much more than just plan, right? Of course, you're talking in terms of how long it gets you to places in terms like that, which is totally a plan algorithm. But then thinking about sight lines and different things like that, there's a lot more at play in that aspect of design.
Yeah. So anytime you have to take into context, or I guess more context into account, it's going to make procedural algorithms a lot harder to write. My advice for people, if they're looking at that specific kind of problem, come up with a good heuristic, or if you know that a nurse can only see 100 feet away, then you could design a module that could take that specific design constraint into account, and then all of a sudden you don't need to write a whole algorithm that does that. So working with the design constraints and using your brain instead of just mindlessly programming everything in my mind, a great way for people to start working with technology in a better way. It's a bit like working with financial analysts when they're just programming so many different financial constraints into a project that it's now no longer about whether or not we should invest in this deal or not. They're just trying to look for the answer in the model. One's productive and one's not productive, right? But I don't know, like it depends. Like, is this like an H2HC, or I'm sorry, an arena healthcare kind of conversion that y'all are looking at, or?
We get all different types. We get
Yeah.
Ground up. We get renovations. All different types of projects. And of
Yeah.
course now with the new types of lifestyles that we're having to adapt to, all different types of those types of boundaries. And it looks like you guys are adapting pretty well in terms of test fits for the social distancing rules and guidelines and different things like that. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. We're a little concerned. Some of our default presets that people use, we do start with a 6-foot corridor width, which now is going to be a problem. So let's say 99% of the buildings we do in TestFit are multifamily to date, and so you might have to start thinking a little bit more about logistics within multifamily buildings. Do we have one-way corridors moving forward? So if you have just imagine like a donut-shaped building. Corridors go in a loop, so okay, you can only head to the left whenever you leave your apartment. Things like that. Logistics plans. We've seen some of our customers start to dive into that. But really, I think that the main concern when it comes to coronavirus stuff right now is how do you get kids back into classrooms. And so like Perkins and Will, good friends of mine over there, they've been working on basically circle packing algorithms, like how can you fit kids in. But then you start asking questions like, okay, well, should we really be trying to pack as many kids as we can into tight space when kids don't, you can't really trust them to say socially distance in the first place. So it remains to be seen as like what the right solution should be. And so what we've done is we've made it easier for people to see those parameters, how wide your corridors are. We've created a couple of features in the modular tools that'll enable people to basically build out like a H2HC concept a lot easier. And it's not something that we're really marketing, but you can do that with the hotel tool. It's great. We shipped a hotel tool in the middle of this, and hotels are at 5% occupancy.
What's some innovative ways that people can use that tool?
Volumetric modular for sure. The same logic that applies in hotels applies in volumetric modular. So we shipped the tool, and we've been in modular for about 3 weeks now, and we've got maybe 5 or 6 companies that have said, "Okay, y'all did okay, but here's how it really works." So getting that feedback has been pretty great for us. I mean, that's how we thrive is feedback from customers.
So speaking of the hotel and modular unit that you shipped, it started off as being able to sort of use your algorithm to lay out spaces quickly, and then there was the parking lots, being able to count parking spaces. Now we have the hotel module, or the my favorite, the orthographic mode. So if you have, how do you say it, wonky angles in your property, and you don't want wonky angles on your building, you can have this orthographic shape, which is all really cool stuff. But what's next? What's TestFit 3.0 and beyond?
3.0. Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I lost the argument internally that we should name orthographic unwonkify. So
Aaron Mahler would vote for that, I guarantee.
yeah, I mean, I was trying to see, what would be the most meme making material out of that, but no, orthographic is fine. I did let one of our engineers name mirroring bathrooms Flippy Floppy, so maybe that'll make it into the main app. I highly doubt it, though.
Nice.
I mean, we are a legit company now. We have investors. We're incorporated. Like, we have to be doing adult things at some point, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the question is, what do we see as 3.0? And so we raised money. Ryan and I, my co-founder and I, we raised money for the first time in January. TestFit has been a customer funded business for 90% of its entire existence, and that enabled us to build a pretty lean kind of shop. But now it's sort of like, okay, you guys have proven out that people like this concept for multifamily, which was about 6% of the market. That's sort of higher density multifamily. Now take the same exact approach to other building types and other things that should be planned using algorithms. So some easy wins for us is going to be like a bathroom configurator, stuff that's governed by code. That there's not going to be a whole lot of people upset about us automating that. So bathrooms for sure. A core configurator, where you're working with shafts, elevators, stairs, those bathrooms that I just mentioned. That's what we're working on like right now. We are going to get another iteration of parking, like our parking features. We're going to get another iteration on that. One that's going to allow really mixed use, where you can host retail and other kinds of spaces inside the garage. And then the last one that we're really working on is I call it setbacks at height, or datums, but really being able to control for more complicated envelope types. And so we're a startup out of Texas. And if you know anything about Texas, there's not a whole lot of zoning laws that would cause setbacks to occur at different heights. But as we've improved our offering and expanded into, we have customers in 40 states and I think maybe 11 or 12 countries right now. So there's a lot of conditions out there. And being able to support setbacks at height is something that is almost ubiquitous across all of those markets.
So that's some pretty cool stuff coming up. And you talked a little bit earlier about integrations and some of the API stuff you're doing. There's the company out there that just went to court and won their lawsuit for the ability to
Upcodes.
Thank you. That seems like that would be a good integration.
So they haven't won their main case yet. So I've been watching the Upcodes case for a long time because it kind of scares the crap out of me. Like we use dead end distance, and like we use a lot of terms that you find in code, like word for word within TestFit. So I hope Upcodes wins. I really do. I think they will. I think it's pretty ridiculous that the ICC, which right here next to me, I've got my Building Codes Illustrated, which is the Francis Ching book. ICC is happy to collaborate with Francis Ching, but the moment that a couple of millennials want to throw together a searchable building codes, then they lose their mind, right? I think it's pretty unfair. They basically built a better version of what the ICC has on their website by themselves. I think the funny meme on that one is like they built it in a cave with a box of scraps, and it was better than what the ICC could put together. So kind of really ticks me off that they're getting sued. So that they won some precedent, or there was a precedent case where it had bipartisan. The justices aren't supposed to be partisan, but of course they all are. That had bipartisan support, and it had, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Roberts kind of siding on the same side. And I don't know. I don't know why the ICC just doesn't drop it. They're going to end up with egg on their face at the end of this thing.
I agree. And I'm pretty sure that everyone that did anything to do with the AEC industry has that Francis Ching book.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I have it.
Yeah, I was actually looking at my copy right behind me when he said it.
It's green, right?
I've got the 5th edition for the building codes. I also have like 4 or 5 of his other books: Form, Space, Order, Building Construction Illustrated. I mean, look, the problem with the building codes to begin with is that it's all legalese and different people interpret it differently. It's the International Building Code, but really it's only like the United States and Saudi Arabia that use it. So, why do we call it the International Building Code? Well, it's because we're Americans and we're pretty ignorant of the outside world.
Well, that's what their company called it. I'm sure it's not a government agency, is it?
No, it's the ICC, International Code Council.
It's what they decide to call it. It is what it is. I'm surprised it didn't sue Mad Cat, but
I mean, I have emailed with the Upcodes guys, about what would it look like to basically use them as an API for compliance.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that there's maybe only 10 companies that really would want to use them for that at this point. So they'd have to build out basically a whole ecosystem with few users at the beginning. So you probably won't see them focus on that for a long time. They're going to continue to serve their core user group, which is just people that are trying to search the codes and get answers.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we use some of their beta features to try out. Like they've got one that's kind of a building calculator that we really like, that gives us the laboratory counts and stuff, helps us check our work. So look, if you're not doing anything in Upcodes right now, you should get your IBC book, use it as a monitor stand, and then buy a copy of Upcodes because it's great.
Maybe that's why the IBC is upset at them.
Possibly. They're a nonprofit though, so they should figure out how to be nonprofit.
Well, you know what? If you keep buying the new code book to use it as a monitor stand and get it upgraded, then why would they be mad?
It's every time my laptop screen gets bigger, I need to get my screen that sits above it off the ground more, so I should buy another code book.
Right.
Clifton said he was a problem solver. That sounds like some good problem solving right there.
That's a very expensive problem solving.
Maybe we could throw it into the software and figure out the best place to put it on our desk.
I just remember, like, I had this internship with this firm in San Antonio, RVK Architects, and I was working for their code guy. And my job every day was to use a polyline to figure out how big rooms were and plug in the floor load to make sure everything is compliant. I spent an entire summer doing that, and it's all stuff that can be done instantaneously in BIM.
Yeah.
Blows my
But
mind.
wasn't BIM then, probably.
Oh no, it was in I think it was AutoCAD. No, AutoCAD LT.
AutoCAD LT even
yeah,
better. So you
yeah.
couldn't
I was the intern, man. You can't give the intern full blown CAD. He'll do some crazy stuff. Yeah,
you might automate it.
you might use list routines.
I made a whole automation tool for LT to do help layouts of conference room spaces. And it was all done in AutoCAD LT. And I did some pretty amazing things with that program. I actually had it so you would launch a little app beside it, and it would stuff the keyboard of AutoCAD LT and draw things for you. It's pretty cool for what it did.
I mean, the thing that blew my mind in LT is that you couldn't edit like dynamic blocks, which is like maybe the greatest tool in AutoCAD in general. Anyways.
Well, yeah, that's why they wanted you to move to AutoCAD.
Yeah, that's how they get you. And after that, I was like, no, we're not going to do any tiered test fit. It's just going to be one product. That's all we got.
Yeah.
Speaking of AutoCAD, I recently downloaded Civil 3D. We have some civil engineers and landscape, architects within Smith Group, and it looks like your street fit tools are really awesome. You can talk on those a little bit.
Yeah. Again, we're trying to automate stuff that is not pretentious, or the architects are comfortable with the design tool automating. Name an architect out there that loves drawing roads and intersections on roads. Not very many.
Another thing Revit does not do well, right?
Yeah, another thing Revit doesn't do well. So what we tried to do was ship a roads tool that would automatically generate street intersections. So trying to take the sort of friction out of drawing roads. So think in AutoCAD, all right? So the way that you draw a road is you draw your center line, and then you do some offsets, and then make sure you do your radius on your center line. Anyway, so we were just sort of talk to some of our customers, like, what is stuff that's really frustrating to draw? And roads is one of those things that people just don't like drawing. They take forever. I mean, just to generate a road intersection in CAD takes, maybe 15, 20 minutes to get it really, good. And especially if you have weird angles. Like one thing that we do is we can now do like roads at an angle, parking spaces at an angle on roads, which is really hard to draft in CAD, but it's super easy to do in TestFit. So yeah, we just tried to ship a product for roads, which, we call it Street Fit, but it's within TestFit. I think it's actually just called roads within TestFit. And I think there's a pretty good review of TestFit that just went up on LinkedIn. A guy in Australia, Gavin Grump.
Yes, the Aussie BIM guru. He was on a couple episodes ago.
Aussie BIM guru. Yeah, he gave a pretty good demonstration of Street Fit, which was, I don't know, good to see. But yeah, things that it doesn't take into account is like grade. So, reasons to use Civil 3D is because you're a civil engineer and you actually know how to draw roads. Reasons to use TestFit's roads is you just want to draw a road as fast as you possibly can to demonstrate like design concept to a client, and maybe you don't care so much about whether or not it's perfectly designed.
Well, of course you'd want it perfectly designed.
I don't know if you do want things perfectly. Like, look, if you're doing feasibility studies, you just want to get within 90%. Like you don't want to be at 100%. It takes way longer to get to 100% than it does to get 90%.
Yeah, that last 10%.
Your TestFit's going to write that 90-10 rule. Forget the 80-20. We're going 90-10.
I think we can do 90-10 now. I think. Look, like I had one of my bosses tell me, okay, that you have you've got a metric, right? It's time, money, and quality. You can get something done quickly for a lot of money with high quality. But you can't get things done, low quality. I'm sorry. I think you guys understand what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
with
those three.
technology,
Pick
with
two.
like with technology, we should be able to get high quality, uh, not very expensive to do it, and get it instantaneously. You know, why can't we have that? We can. You just have to like write insanely specific algorithms that do things really well in order to do it.
Absolutely. Dana, I'm sure you've got some more questions. Oh, she just went light blue.
Dana's gone rogue.
She's counter
While we're waiting for Dana, I do have a question for you, Clifton. With all of this talk of algorithms,
uh-huh.
does that mean you love math?
I do not love math. Look, what you guys need to understand is I am not the only person at the company. Like Ryan Grieg, my co-founder, is just a brilliant math guy, brilliant software engineer. And the only reason why TestFit was ever successful is because it was his brain on the product and sort of the algorithms and it was my brain on here's what the thing needs to do. And so like look, people want to start up a company all the time. Like you really need to find a co-founder, somebody that's basically got a complete opposite skill set as you, and work together. And it's like the first time in my life I ever felt like I was actually collaborating on something.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I see Dana's back.
Yeah, I disappeared there for a second.
What the heck?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure you have a final question for us.
I do, and I was trying to ask it, and then I disappeared.
And you may even have two final questions, and that's allowed too.
Clifton, what is the craziest thing you've ever had to test fit?
The craziest things I've ever had to test fit?
Or that you've ever had the opportunity to test fit?
Oh man. All right. So I'm gonna talk about India for a second. The scale of getting buildings done in India is different than the United States. It's like 100x what we do here, and so I get this bizarre kind of message on LinkedIn. It was one of these international consulting companies says, "Hey, we've got some Indian real estate developers that are bringing here. They want to see what we're doing to innovate in the U.S." And so I went in and I gave a little presentation, and then the guy said, "Okay, we've got 20 square miles of land that we need to turn into like 1 million apartment units." And I was like, "Are you serious?" The scale of that was like unbelievable. And I was like,
pull out all the tools.
That's right.
I was like, how about we do maybe 15,000 units, in an afternoon? And they're like, okay, like that's still faster than what our architects can do. So like get moving, And so I'm like sitting there in this meeting and I'm pitting through everything because, I'm nervous and I want to, this is like early days at TestFit. So I get that, I get them their thing and they go, okay, this is great. Now we need like 15 more, more schemes like this. And I was just like, all right, guys, I'm going to need like some money, or I need to hire some people to do this for you. That was probably the craziest thing that I've ever experienced at TestFit, or one of the crazier things.
Hopefully you end up getting paid well.
I don't think we actually ended up doing anything with them. A lot of the stuff in India is like, it's like a compound. Like once a resident gets into the compound, the real estate guys don't want them to leave. So they'll have like on-site retail, like they want everything that you do to be on their development. So it's pretty interesting to see and hear that part of the world, and like kind of just the change in scale in real estate development. Some of the guys in Texas, we're just trying to do 90, 110 units. And that's pretty huge for some of the development stuff. Other developers in the US, they'll do 500 units. So never heard of somebody wanting to do 20,000 units all at once. It's insane.
That's definitely a lot of units.
Yeah, it's impressive.
That is impressive. All right, Clifton. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on BIMThoughts. It's very interesting, the stuff that you're doing, and I think everyone should go take a look at your site, testfit.io, right?
Yep.
And see the fancy stuff they're doing. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to him. I'm sure he'll answer them.
And such a wonderfully simple name, yet unique. It looks like
Yeah.
you're the only Clifton Harness, and it's spelled just like you would anticipate it
Right.
being spelled. Lucky you.
Your parents were on the ball.
Yeah, it was actually named after my grandfather. His
Oh.
name was Clifton as well. So he was a very successful business guy, and he started a spice manufacturing business. So I feel very blessed to be named after him. He's an awesome guy.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you. And Carl and Dana, Clifton, thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us, Clifton.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.